What's going on, guys, and welcome back. Today I'm going to be covering the first two Rambo movies. This is going to be a two-part review series. I'll be covering First Blood and Rambo First Blood Part 2 in this. And then next I'll be covering, of course, Rambo 3 and Rambo. And just in time for Rambo Last Blood, which comes out this Friday, September 20th. So let's get into this review of First Blood. Came out in 1982, First Blood stars Sylvester Stallone. After finding out a friend of his died, John Rambo, a former Green Beret veteran, passes by a small town in Hope, Washington, where he is forced to hide out in the mountains after a cruel sheriff and his deputies harasses him, which escalates into a one-man war between Rambo and the town. Let's just say they messed with the wrong person. Alright, as always, starting off with the positives, Stallone's performance was great as John Rambo. You could tell this guy was damaged. He shows a lot of emotional depth to his character. This man can act. Of course, this was in his earlier days, so of course he's going to look younger and he's going to be more active and just shine on through. So this was at the peak of his career, I believe. But he played this character so well. He played it in a such character-driven way that you believe that this person has gone through some hardships, and this person was definitely damaged. He showed such emotional depths, especially by the third act. The look and feel of this film was great. It was bright, extravagant, especially the mountain and the cave and the wood scenes where he was out there trying to survive. This movie is basically a survival of the fetus. And when he was in the woods and the mountains and trying to survive, like the look and feel of everything around him was done pretty well. It was shot pretty good. Cinematography and the lighting, it was bright and clear. I like the way they shot this. And the third act really paid off. There will be some negatives that I'll say about this. The third act really paid off. I mean, the explosions and everything, it was done really well, and I love the way they shot that, especially for a 1980s film, early 80s to be exact. The music, the particular song that they chose to play in this, called Homecoming, was a little bit of a tearjerker, especially by the third act. After everything went down, it made me tear a little bit, not cry to the max, but it fit it well. And on to the negatives. This really wasn't my favorite out of the Rambo films. The story involved this Green Beret, retired, who's just looking for a friend and a place to eat and crash, and these assholes, I don't know how else to say it, I'm sorry, but these assholes start harassing him for no reason. Now, I know out there's always going to be prejudice everywhere you go. It's like a disease. But I just did not like the way they handled this. Because of that, the tone was a little dumbed down. I didn't really invest in the story that much. For what they were telling, I understand that it had to go that way. But harassing a veteran, a war hero, the way they did, but they soon got to find out that you can't be doing that to everybody because you really don't know who you're messing with. And that's definitely what Rambo taught everybody in this. But I just didn't like the way they handled it, though. It just felt dragged on. There's just nothing that sparked with me in this film as I was watching it. I mean, as I said before, they made it up by the third act, but that doesn't really excuse it because that's like 90% of the movie. Like the rest of the 10% of the movie was basically action, but not much action to take place in this. And because of that, as I said before, the tone, it just felt dragged on a little bit because of the way the story was. It just didn't really catch my interest that much. I mean, I still watched it, I still enjoyed it somewhat, but I just couldn't get into it because of the tone and the way they handled it. I just didn't really feel it for this. And the other characters other than Rambo and Sam Troutman, who was played by the late Richard Crenna, who sadly passed away back in 2003. He was pretty good, but the other characters, just straight up jerks. I didn't care for them at all. As good as their performance was, I'm not going to down their performance, but as far as characters go, I didn't like them. They showed nothing but their jerk side, and I didn't really care for him at all. Like I said, this goes hand in hand with the story. The way they were treating this man, John Rambo, a former Green Beret war veteran, the way they were treating him. Rambo, just get them all. Just get them all. And on to my final thoughts. For a small scale film, because that's what this was, a real small scale. It just takes place in this really small town, and things go down in the woods, and then you get a third act that goes down in the town, which was pretty cool, which I thought was the only thing that made the movie worthwhile for me. It still wasn't terrible. It was a good start to an awesome action franchise. But as far as the movie itself, as one goes, it just didn't really grab me. I've never been that much of a fan of the first one. Every time I would start a Rambo marathon, I would always actually skip that one and just go straight to the second one, on to the fourth. But if you're looking for something edgier and something action-packed, you won't really get that in this. It's more drama and thriller than anything else. Action thriller, I guess you could say. You won't get any more than that. And if you're okay with that, then great. That's fine. But it just wasn't for me. I'm going to give First Blood a C+. So what did you think of First Blood? Jump down in the comment sections below and leave me your thoughts. Rambo First Blood Part 2 came out back in 1985. After being released from prison, John Rambo is sent to Vietnam for a top-secret mission to do recon for POWs. Things turn sour very fast as Rambo gets stranded, which forces him to fight for his life and survive. As usual, positives. The story was just excellent. It was so much better than the first one. You get to see more of what Rambo went through, which was like flashbacks in First Blood. This one, you get to see it in full action. There's nothing held back in this. There was some time before he got out of Nam before, and now you get to see him back in action in full force, what this character is supposed to be. You see him in full capacity, more action, more tensity. This is where I think the series really started. If you were ever wanting to become a Rambo fan, start with this one. But hey, no grudges if you want to start with the first one. That's completely fine. But for me, this is where the series began. Let's get into the characters. Of course, my main man, Sylvester Stallone, returns as John Rambo. And like I said, you get to see him in full capacity. He's even more character-driven in this. I'll get to what I mean by that later. You just see what this character is supposed to be. You see him in this captive state that really ups the stakes. This man delivers. But you see him as a lean, mean fighting machine with a heroic side too. And Richard Crenna, he returns as Troutman. He returns as the commanding officer that gets him out of prison at the beginning. He's about the only one that he trusts. I think Richard Crenna did a pretty good performance in that character as well, once again. And getting back to what I meant about more character drive for Rambo, you get this girl played by Julia Nixon. She plays a girl named Ko, who's already on the island, the Vietnam island, who helps him out. They develop sort of this chemistry that kind of leads to love. And I think it gives Rambo more of a human side in this. You know, something happens to this poor lady that really sets Rambo off the edge. And pretty much the whole movie too. And from that point on, it was pretty much on. And the fact that Rambo got stranded on that island because of some bureaucratic bullcrap, that's just wrong. But I think the movie needed that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a movie. The villains was pretty cool too, a lot better than the ones in the first one. The ones in the first ones were just jerks. These and this were actual war criminals in Vietnam, and he was going up against his actual complete foe. You know, you got all these Marvel characters that deals with villains that's to their level. That's how I think of the villains in the Rambo Part 2. They were more on his level. Unlike the ones in the first, which was just small-time civilians, these villains were more of a challenge for Rambo. For someone like Rambo, that was pretty good. Your hero is only as good as your villain. That's what I always say. The look and feel of this film was pretty good. The hunting scene where he was hunting the bad guys in the woods, picking them off one by one, that was awesome. You see the rain coming down, and it was shot pretty well. The cinematography and the lighting, it was pieced very well. Of course, the score, once again, was very deep. It had that homecoming song from the first, and they kind of added it as the actual score, the actual Rambo theme. A lot of my mixed, and this might not be a big deal for most, but the pacing was a little off. It took about maybe 35 minutes for it to actually start up. But once it did, once the movie started, once you get past that 35 minutes, it's definitely worth it. You know, from the second act on, it's definitely worth it. So that's why the pacing and the tone isn't that much of a complete downer. But I did find myself glare off at times. But once I got past that, oh buddy, it was on. Let me just sharpen my knife here. My final thoughts. Tons of action, lots of heart. And like I said before, Rambo First Blood Part 2 is where the series started for me. And is where Rambo really belonged as a character, really built up as an actual war character, where you actually find out what this character is all about. And it is awesome. So that being said, I'm giving Rambo First Blood Part 2 an A. Definite improvement over the last. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video of the 2-part Rambo series. I will have Rambo 3 and Rambo. It will be coming to you soon before Rambo Last Blood, which that'll be out this weekend. Be sure to like and subscribe and click that bell icon for future posts on all so you don't miss any of my posts. Stay tuned for more videos and reviews coming soon to a computer screen or cell phone near you. Peace the rep out.